That is a true story. Bloody hell, I tell you what, my ass were twitching. I know a lot of people like the old coppering tales, and I keep getting asked about days of old and the degree of influence that Freemasonry had in the police. Now, whilst in the police, I was never ever a Freemason, nor was I ever invited to become one. But it was quite apparent that the membership of certain organisations within the police afforded you a degree of patronage if you aspired to a particular posting or specialism or rank. And that patronage could be on the back of Freemasonry, if you were in the right lodge, or if you were just a Freemason. Or it could be being in the right golf club, or the right Rotary club, or the right Catholic club, or whatever. There was a lot of that going on, without a shadow of a doubt. You only had to look at some of the calibre of some of the senior appointments and think, you are bloody kidding, only to find out that, of course, they were in the same, shall we say, organisation as somebody much more senior who would have the whip hand when it came to promotions and appointments. So a lot of that went on, but I would never part of that. But once I'd retired from the police, for some strange reason, a colleague, a former colleague of mine, invited me to join a local lodge, Masons. So I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. Of course, at the time when I said, yeah, I'll do it, it was only subsequently I found out it cost me £300 a year. Hey, back in 2014, I think it was. But anyway, so I thought, yeah, I'll join, see what it's all about. So I'm not giving any secrets away here, because you can Google all of this and find it out. It's not the secret undercover world that it used to be. Nothing is it? In you know, in the modern age of the all-informed internet and the world of Google, there ain't nothing cloak and dagger anymore, unless it's governments, of course. So, you know, and I'm not giving away any secrets at all. So I joined this here lodge, and to become a Master Mason, which is sort of your rite of passage, that's when you've arrived, you've got to go through 2 previous stages. So there's like 3 basic degrees. You're becoming like an apprentice, and then there's an intermediate, and I even forget what they call the intermediate position, and then there's your Master Mason, and you've got to go through all these ceremonies. And yes, you do wear some sort of bloody ragged old gown that looks like something out of the life of Brian, and you do have to roll up your trouser leg up to your knee, and your arm up to your elbow, and have your breast exposed, which is meant to symbolise that you come into Freemasonry as somebody that's got nothing, a pauper basically, and then you become enlightened and enriched as you go through the degrees. And for each you go through all of these. Then at 3rd degree you go in this room with a load of other Masons, and they turn light out, and you've got to fall back and hope that somebody's going to catch you. It's all about trust. And then there's a reenactment of something that either Solomon did or were done to Solomon back in the day. But I remember thinking after a few weeks there, what's this all about then? I don't get it. Because all it seemed to be were like a meeting every week, or whatever it was. where you'd recite a load of text, a load of ritual, and go through various ceremonies and pay homage to the master of the lodge and all of that, and walk around and march up and down. I just didn't get it at all. But they'd all say, oh, don't worry, when you do the 3rd degree, when you become a master mason, it'll all become clear. So after about a year, I did the 3rd degree, and you have to learn by rote a lot of extended passages and be able to recite them. So quite a bit of work goes into it. So it does all this, goes through this ceremony. And I thought, fuck me, I still haven't got a clue what it's all about. And I couldn't. And whether it was just me and a closed mind, all it occurred to me that it was an excuse for a load of old men to get together every so often, have a nice meal and a load of beer, give a few speeches, listen to a few speeches, do the odd ceremony, and then go home. And that was it. I thought, what's all this about then? £300 a year for this. Anyway, so I just packed it in. I think I'm what's called a lapsed mason. Hey, maybe they're after me. No, I just don't get it. To be fair to them, very good charitable causes are supported by the Freemasons. I mean, one of the biggest ones are the Yorkshire Ambulance. So that's fair enough. You know, if I'm paying £300 a year and a big chunk of it's going to support the Yorkshire Air Ambulance, yeah, that's grand, particularly as a motorcyclist. Not an issue, but I just could not get my head around its deeper significance, if there was one. So it played no part in my advancement through the ranks in the police, no part whatsoever, but I'm sure that it played a part in the 70s and 80s particularly, in some people perhaps getting jobs that they otherwise would not have got. Oh. And I'm reminded of a tale. So this is a tale that is sufficiently old. It's from the mid-1980s. It's sufficiently old for me to be able to safely tell it. But I was a tutor constable back in the day, so I got trained and qualified to teach operational policing throughout 10 weeks of accompanied patrol and 2 years of probationary constable's tenure to basically teach street craft to new cops, fresh-faced cops, and I trained quite a few. But I had this particular one who never made the grade, and we're out one early turn on patrol, and radio shouts up. This will be about, so early turn starts at 6 o'clock briefing. So probably about 6:15, out on foot patrol. And it were sort of towards the back end of the year, so it was dark. But the radio shouts up and says, go to this particular location in the city centre, report of a man laid out. Milkman's called it in. So I thought, usual drunk, because this will be a Saturday morning. So obviously I'm thinking it'll be a usual pisshead from Friday night, laid out. So anyway, it goes to this particular location of waste ground. Sure enough, as this fella laid out, slight complicated thing, his head's stoved in, and I mean stoved in, properly, flattened, with his brains hanging out, and one of his eyes hanging out, and a right mess, basically, a right mess. So very obviously, what we classified back then as a suspicious death. No shit, Sherlock, plenty suspicious. Anyway, so probation, a young lad I'm showing round, he nearly passes out. He ends up going drip white, wobbling at the knees. Try to keep his breakfast down. So I radios up to the control room and basically said, look, you better get the show on the road, notify duty supervision, notify the duty sergeant, notify the duty inspector, contact on-call CID, start the ball rolling. This is a suspicious death, and this is why. Now, what we are taught as fresh-faced PCs at training school is the importance, the critical importance of scene preservation if you've got a serious crime. So me and this fresh-faced probation, we need to preserve this crime scene. So what we do is, what you basically need to do is you need to draw a plan that shows how you've gone up to the site of the crime. So that the way that you've gone in, so of course until you actually get there and see what there is, you've no reason to be sort of forensically choosing a way in. But having done so, you need to record exactly what route you've taken into the scene, so that anybody else that comes to the scene takes the same route. And you also need to set up a running log. As the first officer on scene, you need to set up a running log, so you get your pocketbook out and you make a note of everybody that comes to the scene, what time they arrive and what time they leave, and who they are and why they're there. And even as a young PC on this crime scene, if somebody senior rocks up and wants to go up to the scene that doesn't have a good reason to go up to the scene, you've got to politely say no. And that's bloody hard work for a young PC to tell a sergeant or inspector, sorry sergeant, sorry sir, you can't go any further into the scene than this. There's only me and this here probationer being in there. So, any road up, that's easier said than done. But we did it textbook, because of course I'm training this cop part, so it's got to be done right. Now, what I eventually susses after we'd snooped round for a bit is that where this particular deceased is not actually the murder scene. The murder scene is like 15 yards away on the road, on this quiet side road, and the body's obviously being dragged and left in an attempt to conceal it from obvious view on this bit of wasteland. And I sees that there's a big pool of blood in the middle of the road. So that is also a crime scene. It's almost certainly the original site of the assault. It turns out this fella had a massive coping stone dropped on his head from a great height, which had caused the injuries. Anyway, so I sees this and I think, bloody hell, we've got two scenes here, and I'm just about to go up and make sure that nobody encroaches upon this here other scene, this big pool of blood, when the divisional van, the Black Maria as some people call it, but the van that's always sort of on patrol, rocks up, because everybody's wanting to come to this scene. Divisional van rocks up and drives straight through this pool of blood. Ho ho ho! Because it's dark and it's not obvious. So the van rocks up, drives straight through a pool of blood. Bloody red red blood tyre tracks right down the road. Oh my God. So it's starting to become a bit of a fiasco, is this. But anyway, so we secures it all, starts our running log, draws us plan, all the rest of it. And they call out divisional CID, and the DCI back then, absolute dead ringer for Gene Hunt out of Ashes to Ashes. Absolute dead ringer in all aspects. And I think he'd have the statutory late Friday night on the Ale. And the other fella that needed to rock up, of course, was what back then was called the Force Surgeon, or the FME, Force Medical Examiner, whatever they're known as now, back then called the Force Surgeon. So he rocks up, and I think he'd been on the sauce the night before, because they were both, I think it's fair to say these two were both ale carts. So they rock up, and this here Force Surgeon, he were a bugger. He were that well connected, whether through Freemasonry or some other bloody dark endeavour, I don't know, but he were that well connected with the senior command of the force that he could get away with blue murder. He'd think no, getting in his car. He had a big powerful car. I won't mention what it was. I know what it was, but just to try and keep a bit of anonymity about it. But he'd get in his big fast car and he'd think nothing about charging up the arse of a marked police vehicle on duty, flashing it and then overtaking at great speed. Quite possibly whilst having a belly full of ale. Quite possibly over the prescribed limit. Of course we never knew, because nobody ever dared stop him. Oh look, that's so-and-so, so-and-so, the Force Surgeon. And that's what he'd do, matter of fact. But he were untouchable, absolutely untouchable. So anyway, these two rock up. Bloody hell, talk about dishevelled. Body were in better turned out. And we're there, me and this young lad, and we've got it all mapped out, and we've got barrier tape up by now, and we've got us running log going, and the rest of it. And when these two rock up, just about to say, right sir, this is what I've found, this is the initial scene, this is the secondary scene, this is our route in, this is who's visited the scene so far, this is a running log, etc, etc, etc. And that were it. Just chucked us a death one. They were absolutely blindsided, and they both just pretty meandered into the scene. At DCI with fagging his gun, with ash dropping off. Bloody hell. So about as unprofessional as you can imagine. And I'm of course thinking, what the bloody hell's going on here? You know, I'm a young cop here. I'm still a young PC myself. I've done everything by the book as we've been trained to do. And then the great and good come along. They're supposed to know exactly what they're doing. Don't even speak to us. Don't even thank us for doing the job right, and then go trample all over the scene. And I thought, well, what a waste of time. Anyway, so, got a long story short, I thought I've got to say something here, because I don't want to take the rap if there's any later complications through this scene having become compromised. Now don't get me wrong, at the end of the day there was an investigation, there was an arrest and there was a conviction. So all's well that ends well. But I thought, all right, I've got to say something here. So I went to the sergeant, I told sergeant, and sergeants, I said, this is what's happened, we preserved this scene, we've done it by the book, sergeant. But he helped DCI rocks up with Force Surgeon, but it trampled all over it. And I'm a bit concerned, oh right, best go have a word with Inspector. So Sergeant takes me in to see Inspector. So I tells Inspector, who were a good fella, that Inspector I remember at the time, obviously I'm not going to mention his name, but he were a good fella. So he sort of says, oh, bloody hell, better go see Chief Inspector. Oh, Chief Inspector, better go speak to the Superintendent. Superintendent, better go speak to Chief Superintendent. And no doubt Chief Superintendent, not least because of the status of this force surgeon in particular. Chief Superintendent probably went to ACC, to one of the Assistant Chief Constables. And I don't know how far it ended up going up. Might have not have gone that far, I don't know. But the bottom line was, keep your mouth shut, lad. Say no. Know what's going to happen on the back of it. Keep your head down. Don't mention it again to anybody. Do not mention it to anybody, anywhere, family, colleagues, at all, full stop, or else. Full Scarborough warning. And that is a true story. Bloody hell, I tell you what, my arse were twitching. But yeah, a perfect example of the gulf which existed back then between theory and practice. Told you A65 were boring. I hope you didn't find that story boring. Other than that, until the next time, and in the meantime, please subscribe to the channel. I really would appreciate it. Keep it shiny side up, and I'll see you.